You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
LVMH, Moët Hennessy Louis Vuitton, is the biggest and most successful luxury goods conglomerate in the world. Home to 75-plus iconic maisons across 6 different business sectors, LVMH has created a constellation of iconic luxury brands including Louis Vuitton, Bulgari, Dior, Fendi, Marc Jacobs, Tiffany Co, and Séphora, just to name a few. At the helm of LVMH is Chairman and CEO Bernard Arnault. Both LVMH and Mr. Arnault have an indelible imprint on the luxury industry on account of the sheer scale of the company's acquisitions and continuing profitability. In fact, 2022 marked another record-setting year for LVMH. My guest on the luxury item is Anish Melwani, Chairman and CEO of LVMH for North America. In this role, he oversees and coordinates the activities of the LVMH Group across 75-plus maisons. Mr. Melwani sits on the board of directors for Fresh, Marc Jacobs, Colgan Sellers, Starboard Cruise Services, and Tiffany Co. Prior to joining LVMH in 2015, he was a senior partner in the New York office of McKinsey & Company, where he co-led the global strategy and corporate finance practice and supported clients across industries. Mr. Melwani is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, the board of the United Way of New York City, where he serves on the marketing committee, and the National Retail Federation's board of directors. Welcome to the Luxury Item, Anish.
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me. So you joined LVMH as chairman and CEO of North America in 2015, came from McKinsey where you were a senior partner, and you really came on board at a really interesting time especially for the global luxury goods market. You had Brexit, the US presidential election, and terrorism all led to the significant uncertainty and lower consumer confidence, hindering sales of personal luxury goods. The US market was further tested with the impact of the pandemic, but its resilience has been greater than many originally even expected. So since joining LVMH and seeing the cultural shifts and all these changes that have been going on in the business landscape, how has the relationship between luxury and the U.S. consumer evolved?
Well, Scott, look, it's been a fascinating period and certainly a tremendous education for me personally. One of the things that I learned when I joined the group is from some of our leaders in Paris is that they viewed the U.S. as an emerging market for luxury. And what I mean by that is if you look at the cultural penetration of luxury in the U.S., it's still significantly lower than it is in Europe. Mm-hmm. Of course, most luxury brands are European, and so the kinds of cultural traditions, a mother giving her teenage daughter her first fine fragrance is something I've heard about as a real tradition in many European countries. The kinds of gifts you might give for a graduation, a briefcase for someone's new professional career. Those are traditions that have been part of culture in Europe for generations that simply aren't here. And what I've observed is, through a number of forces, one of which was certainly COVID, and when people had a lot of free time on their hands, is we've seen the American consumer get more engaged with different aspects of luxury. And I still think we have a long way to go, but we've seen some of the benefits of that. Penetration. To give you a sense, the U.S. Was about 23% of LVMH's global sales in 2019, mm-hmm. and this past year it was about 27%. So we've seen that increase in terms of our region's share of the global pie.
A couple of months ago, LVMH announced that it delivered a second straight year of record sales and profits. Congratulations on that. LVMH owner Bernard Arnault said that LVMH was going into this year with confidence, despite the uncertainties weighing on the global economy. And he believed LVMH could continue growing as it did in 2022. So what's driving that confidence?
Well, I think the confidence of Mr. Arnault comes first because he's an incredibly confident person and has always been his whole career. But also, we have, I think, one of the more extraordinarily well-balanced portfolios across our 75, 76 maisons. in terms of the parts of a luxury lifestyle that we participate in. And so we aren't as exposed to a single business cycle as many companies would be. So, what I've learned is that the wines and spirits cycle operates quite differently from the beauty cycle, which in and of itself is different from the fashion and leather goods. And one major one that we've seen in these last few years is the hospitality cycle is totally different. Right now we're seeing a shift in share of wallet from products to experiences. That was happening pre-COVID. It obviously got put on hold during COVID, and is now coming back in a very strong way. And so, I think our confidence as a group is that we do have this balanced and diversified portfolio across the luxury spectrum. And we have these teams in each of our maisons who are working every day to build the desirability of their products and offerings with customers. And however the immediate cycle in the given industry works out, we should be okay.
So following a period of strong sales, there are already signs that the U.S. luxury market is slowing. Department stores have already started to report weaker sales, and a number of luxury brands have reported slowing growth. And while LVMH's revenue grew in Q4 2022, it wasn't at the same breakneck pace as earlier in the year. In fact, Saks just released a study that said a lower percentage of luxury shoppers will spend the same or more on luxury goods in the next 3 months. So while the economic outlook is hard to predict, do you think the luxury category, once again, is muscular enough to remain insulated from economic turbulence?
I guess I would say that we see that our group, in part because of the diversification I just mentioned, we'll have some insulation. At the end of the day, we're participants in the global economy, and we are certainly subject to economic cycles. But if you take a step back, what Saks Fifth Avenue was talking about is basically fashion and leather goods. That's the sector that they mainly participate in. And when you consider the price point of luxury in that part of the business, and you have a lot of economic uncertainty, you have layoffs that are not actually very broad, but they're widespread, as in lots of companies have been laying off some of their people. The effect on people's confidence is much broader than it's the actual effect of people losing their jobs. But that can certainly cause people to consider delaying a significant purchase. On the other hand, what we're finding is that in these stressful economic times, people are turning to some of the quote unquote affordable luxuries that give them a sense of satisfaction and happiness, like our beauty products. And we're seeing, again, not just in our business, but across the category, beauty category is doing very well, our Sephora business doing very well. And again, we're seeing different trends in wines and spirits, but not a fundamental reduction in consumption, right? So I do think that we are relatively well positioned, and there may be some shifts in where people choose to spend, but that's nothing new.
Yeah, because the data is showing that aspirational luxury buyers are already cutting back in the U.S. and spending among the wealthiest 2% of global consumers, who together I think account for like 40% of luxury spending, is still strong. And it seems like competition for those top spenders is just going to intensify this year. So if that's the case, do you see LVMH and its maisons amping up marketing efforts to this narrower set of customers?
Well, first, I'm not sure that that competition could get any more intense than it already is, right? But I think it's interesting, Scott. I get pitched every year by a number of groups, various groups, who have an incredible opportunity for us to, where they've gathered a group of people who would be in that wealthiest 2%, and they are offering us the incredible opportunity to give away our products to them for free. And my reaction is kind of your reaction, which is, first of all, if we want to build desirability, giving away products is usually not a very good way convince people that that's something that they should be paying for. But more importantly, it misunderstands the mechanics and psychology of desirability. And at the end of the day, the way you build desirability is by building cultural relevance of the brands and the products, and that requires a combination of creativity paired with the heritage that and his storytelling history of our maisons. So we are absolutely going to continue to do that. And I would also say that the data has shown that, put aside socioeconomics for a second, age matters a lot. So you find that even though young people may be not very well represented in that top 2%, they are often the people who the wealthier, older customers look to for what is cool, what is relevant. And so, I would say that our philosophy is not to over market to any one particular group, but to make sure that we are driving that cultural relevance, which then drives desirability. And when you have that, then the people who have the assets and are open to spend, they come along.
Yeah, and the world's luxury goods giants raised their prices on handbags, clothes, shoes, and jewelry last year in order to maintain these margins and face little resistance from shoppers. Prices of core handbags from brands like Louis Vuitton increased double-digit percentages or more in the past 2 years. And I think UBS estimated luxury labels raised their prices by 8% on average in 2022. Is the price increase trend going to continue this year?
Well, look, first of all, each of our maisons, manages its own pricing. And again, I would tell you, if you look across the balance of our portfolio, those numbers may be true in fashion and leather goods. I don't think I think you would see lower numbers in beauty and in wines and spirits and in other areas. But I think the reality is, first of all, we are not immune to inflation on our supply side and in our workforce, our colleagues. So there are inflationary pressures. But as those attenuate, we'd expect price increases to also return to more historical levels as well. But could we see further price increases in 2023 in some categories? Sure.
A couple of months ago, you participated in a fireside chat at NRF 2023, Retail's big show. You were talking about the resilience of luxury and that it's connected to our identity. You said, quote, once you adopt luxury, once you start wearing luxury as part of your identity, most people don't want to go backwards. What's the emotional stickiness that luxury has that grips consumers in tumultuous times?
Look, this goes to my core belief that the luxury industry is grounded in the human emotion of accomplishment. Luxury products are products that there is always a less expensive alternative that would be functionally equivalent, whether it's a tote bag or a lipstick or a bottle of wine, bottle of champagne, a hotel room, right? There's the difference between a luxury product and a more mass market product from a functional perspective would be relatively limited. So luxury exists because of the quality, the craftsmanship, the storytelling, and the image, the cultural relevance that is transmitted through that piece to the person who purchases it. And so the reason for my comment that day was to say, if you have reached a place of accomplishment in your life and you are choosing to express that as part of your identity, with whether it's your clothes or your handbag or your fragrance or the champagne you choose at a restaurant, to pull back from that is implicitly can feel like you are becoming less accomplished, and that's something which, of course, there are times when that can happen, but it's not something that I believe people want to do. It doesn't feel great to do that. And so, I think that it's that feeling of personal accomplishment and how you choose to express that to other people that I think is a bit sticky.
So I wanted to talk to you about the role of the physical store. As e-commerce growth normalizes after its pandemic boom, luxury shoppers have made it clear that although they still value online channels, they also want brick and mortar experiences. The rumors of the final death of physical retail obviously was greatly exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing luxury brands respond to the demand for expensive handbags and clothes by expanding their retail presence across the US and and looking beyond just the tier one cities. How has the rapid digitalization of commerce transforming the role of the physical store at LVMH's brands?
Well, look, I think I would answer that a little bit with a little bit of a slightly different angle, which is to say, what digital has done is broaden and fragmented the pathways of discovery. So what I mean by that is, if you go back, and this is before I entered the industry, so I rely on people who have been here for a lot longer than I have. People tell me, you go back 20, 30 years ago, the way you discovered what was new in fashion or luxury is you walked into Bloomingdale's or Bergdorf Goodman or Saks Fifth Avenue if you're here in New York. If you were in Dallas, you walked into Neiman Marcus. And what you saw there was your first point of discovery. Maybe if you were really into fashion and luxury, you subscribed to Vogue or Harper's Bazaar, or any of the major magazines, and you flipped through those pages and you discovered it that way, right? With the role of digital and e-commerce, there are now many, many pathways that people can discover luxury. They can discover it through influencers, real sort of professional influencers. They can discover it through their friends who influence them through their social media feeds. They can discover it through our own websites. And they can actually, because of the e-commerce platforms, they can actually see the entire assortment. They can see it in 3D in some cases. They can spin it around, et cetera, et cetera. So I think what we found is that digitization of commerce in general has expanded the reach of product discovery and storytelling. On the other hand, that's only enhanced and increased the demand for our physical presence, because at the end of the day, particularly if you're in fashion and leather goods or watches and jewelry, for 90+% of our customers, this is a significant purchase for them. It's a very considered purchase. And they want to see it in person. They want to try it on. They want to see how it sits across. If it's a crossbody bag, how does it sit on their hip? And those experiences can only happen convincingly these days. I think there's obviously technology to evolve this, but those can only happen in the physical world. So, to a point you said about going beyond tier one cities, I think that as the internet and digital technologies have expanded the reach of discovery, it's grown desirability for luxury products, ours and others, and that's made it more viable for us to have freestanding stores in markets, be it Nashville, Austin, Scottsdale, where there might not have been sufficient demand before to justify those economics.
So while we're talking about physical stores, many retailers are starting to take a much broader and more thorough picture of the true impact that stores are having beyond just profit and foot traffic alone. They're starting to put metrics against consumer impact. Customer impact takes into consideration customer service, how engaging the store's designs are, layout, and the overall experience that customers have when they visit the store. And we know Louis Vuitton and Christian Dior, Tiffany, and others are great at delivering brand impact at their boutiques. But are they also measuring the impact the store has on the overall customer experience?
Oh, sure. In fact, I would argue that the luxury industry was probably, some of the pioneers in really thinking about the retail experience as a 360 customer experience, right? We're the ones who greet guests with a glass of champagne. We design our stores with sitting areas where you can relax and sit with your friends while you're shopping. We have most of our stores, especially our flagships, have one or more VIP salons where you can have a very private experience. So, the luxury experience is compared to other retail is much less transactional and is in fact focused on the overall customer experience. Because first of all, it takes time to do the storytelling in order to have the client to be comfortable with the purchase, with the, as I said, a highly considered purchase that they're making. And because it's those relationships that with not only with the immediate client advisor you're talking to, but also with the brand that develop over time that are really the path to success in luxury.
And you were talking about younger consumers before, and luxury shoppers are getting wealthier and younger, with purchases by some of the newest consumers expected to grow 3 times faster than older generations over the next decade. Bain predicts spending by Gen Z and the even younger generation Alpha, that's under 13, will make up a third of the luxury market by 2030. Do you see future generations, whether in Europe or Asia or America, having the same attitudes about luxury as your current customers?
It's interesting, Scott. I think there's a couple things that we are seeing that are similar. In fact, the youngest customers, because they tend to be more focused on things like sustainability and even traceability of raw materials and making sure that things were ethically sourced and produced. They are less interested in the fast fashion concepts and more interested in things that are made well with traditional methods, which is really what luxury is all about. So we almost see the youngest generations kind of moving back to some of the values that were more common, perhaps 2 generations before. But again, as I said before, the main thing that really drives desirability is a combination of quality and cultural relevance. And so where that comes into play is, what is culturally relevant for a Gen Z, or as you say, an Alpha, is really the question that we have to figure out, right? And how to create that relevance, but without pandering to them. Because at the end of the day, obviously, you're not selling cognac to 13-year-olds. So it's got to be done in an appropriate way and in a way that is genuinely authentic, so that it fits. Because if you try to reach them, even if you're trying to reach them through the right social media channels or the right celebrities, but it isn't authentic, it comes across very quickly as pandering, and that's never a good thing.
So do you think social media will play an even bigger role in driving luxury sales among these younger audiences?
I mean, again, it's a little bit like one of your questions before. I'm not sure it could play a bigger role at this point. Social media is media for many people, and not just the younger ones, right? So I think social media is incredibly important. I think which platforms are relevant for which audiences is something that is always evolving, right? 3 years ago, I was talking about TikTok, and people were, wondering what were we talking about? And
right.
Now it's so prevalent that we're thinking about banning it in this country.
Right.
So which social media platform? Who knows? And in fact, I would almost say it's certain that it will continue to evolve, and there may be a platform 5 years from now that we haven't even talked about until today. But I think the reality is social media is media for much of the audience today.
LVMH is known for its decentralized structure that lets each of the maisons independently do the heavy lifting. You encourage the maisons to compete with each other to drive innovation and creativity. And on paper, it's not the most efficient way to run a large conglomerate, but in LVMH's cases, it's one of these, rising tide lifts all boats. Can you talk about how the business and creative leaders of each maison work together to create desire for the brand, as you were talking about before, while still delivering a strong business performance?
Yeah, look, I think this is, if anything, this is the kind of secret sauce. Except I don't necessarily know the whole secret yet as a corporate guy. But when I remember talking with Cindy Toledano, who is the chairman of our fashion division and previously was the CEO of Christian Dior Couture for many years. And he referred to this as the dance, right? The dance between the business leader and the creative director to first expose the creative director to all that the house has to offer in terms of its heritage and its DNA through its archives, through historical pieces, etc., and then to work with and sort of shape together with the creative director what are going to be those offerings, those products or experiences that are going to really blow people's mind. And I love the way that Mr. Arnault has described this publicly a few times when he talks about desirability when it comes in luxury. He says it's about making products that you didn't know existed one day, and then the next day after you've seen them, you can't live without them. And so I honestly can't tell you exactly how it's done because I'm not, that's not my place in the organization. But I can tell you that when it works, it's where these trends, these viral moments come from.
So more luxury brands are fervently implementing blockchain technology into its businesses thanks to its effectiveness in tracking and trading luxury goods. A couple of years ago, LVMH, Richemont, and Prada joined forces to launch a blockchain consortium to help luxury shoppers authenticate their goods. And I know you're close to this. Can you give an update on what's going on with the Aura Blockchain Consortium?
Sure. So, the consortium, as you mentioned, was started by LVMH with Prada and Cartier of Richemont. We've since added as founding members the OTB Group, which is Diesel and Maison Margiela, and Mercedes-Benz joined last summer. And all of us as founding members share the ambition of developing the applications of blockchain technology that actually raise the standards of luxury. I think the focus for the moment, for the most part, is around traceability and authenticity, right? How do we? So, for example, our Louis Vuitton brand, which is actually the brand that incubated the Aura project initially some years ago, has created a line of jewelry, a line of diamond jewelry, where every diamond comes with an Aura certificate, a digital certificate. And that has all the information you might expect from a sort of a GIA or a gemological certificate about the color, cut, and clarity, weight, et cetera, of the diamond. But it also contains the path that diamond took all the way back to the mine where it came from. So which mine did it come out of? Where was it sent for cutting and polishing? How did it get to Louis Vuitton, et cetera? And, this is something that we believe helps to differentiate true luxury brands, right? Which have that vertical integration and that understanding of their supply chain all the way back to its original sources, so that we can say with confidence to our clients that you are buying a product that has not been tainted in any way, either by unethical practices or unsustainable practices. And so, we're currently working on rolling out more applications of that, and working with the other members of the consortium to figure out what are those things that are going to help set luxury apart in a concrete way, and how did the blockchain technologies help us do that?
So while we're on the virtual topic, I want to talk about Web3 and Metaverse efforts at LVMH. Millions of people are spending their time in immersive, interconnected digital environments. There are people who place as much, if not more, value on their digital wardrobes as their physical ones. And the metaverse has transformed the fashion industry in the past 2 years, whether it's selling character skins on Fortnite or launching digital clothing collections or setting up shop with virtual events and exclusive drops. And luxury brands have rushed into this new and hugely popular space to engage with potential new customers. Mr. Arnault has stated in the past about being cautious of a metaverse bubble. What has been LVMH's approach to the metaverse, and how do you decide which brands in the portfolio are best suited for this emerging environment?
Well, first, I think the first point is the maisons are the ones who decide what makes sense for them, as opposed to the group telling them where to go. But I think the principle that Mr. Arnault spoke about, which is that, I believe his words were something to the effect of, we're not interested in selling $10 digital sneakers, reflects the core kind of belief underneath the group's thinking on this, which is to say, as you said, Scott, metaverses are places where people express themselves digitally and they have an identity. And, to the extent that luxury brands or luxury products are part of your identity in the physical world, we believe that that's something you may want to express in your identity in a virtual world. And you should be able to, right? So one of the things that we're looking at and testing right now are ways to create digital twins of products that if you buy it in the physical world, you're able to have your avatar wear or carry that same product or a representation of that product in a virtual world or a metaverse. And by the way, the metaverse term is new, but a large chunk of the population has been calling them video games for a long time, and have been buying virtual products in video games for decades. So this isn't quite as new as some might portray it. I think, on the other hand, the other thing that is coming with this, which exists in the gaming world, but I think is expanding beyond, is this idea of not just virtual identity, but virtual communities. And we have a number of maisons that are looking to find ways to work with to access those communities in an authentic way, in order to build desirability. So, for example, a few years ago, Louis Vuitton partnered with the League of Legends game for their annual tournament, and they designed some clothing that was for virtual skins that were specific for the tournament. But they also partnered with them to make the carrying case for the trophy at the end of the tournament. And that's something that Louis Vuitton does for the French Open. They did it for the World Cup. They did it for the NBA. So it was something which basically recognized that esports tournaments are sporting tournaments, and they matter to a large number of people, and therefore the ultimate trophy in an esport should be treated just as preciously as in a physical tournament. In another example, our Hennessy Maison created a Web3 partnership with the Friends with Benefits DAO. And they've created something called Cafe 11, which is a sort of a Web3 cultural social club. And it's a community of about 3,000 creatives that are connected through these tokens and engage with Hennessy and with each other as part of their community. So we're still as we move into those areas, we're still very early days, and our maisons are experimenting, but again, always making sure that they are staying true to the principles of luxury and the principles of their own heritage and DNA.
LVMH had several M&A deals in the past couple of years across divisions. They acquired a majority stake in a tannery, a minority stake in a leather and suede manufacturer, and acquired Joseph Phelps Vineyards. What is your main driver when you contemplate acquisitions? Do you see any gaps in the current portfolio of brands, or any areas you wish to get into that you aren't now?
What I'd say is that in my conversations with Mr. Arnault and our senior leadership, it's never really been about gaps. I would say that, hospitality was an area that we experimented with and got into for over a decade ago with the Cheval Blanc hotels. We have a partnership with, used to be Ritz-Carlton, now it's Marriott International, for the Bulgari hotels, which actually are operated by Marriott. But the Belmond acquisition reflected a belief that was an area that we thought was going to be an attractive one, would be a good fit for our group. And then, and of all the assets that were out there in the luxury hospitality space, Belmond was by far the best fit for us. So I would say it's less about conversations we have about gaps, whereas Mr. Arnault always says that when we're looking to make an acquisition, it should be a brand that has the potential to be here and be relevant 100 years from now. And those brands are not common, right? Those don't grow on trees. And so I would say that it's a bit more opportunistic in the sense that if we were to find a brand that was actionable and that there was enough conviction, had that kind of potential, that kind of richness of its origin story, its its heritage, even if that heritage is relatively nascent. That's the thing that we're looking for.
And you were talking about luxury hospitality, and LVMH controls 3 international luxury hotel groups. It's been steadily expanding its portfolio. What is the group's strategic approach to luxury hospitality, and how does it nurture collaborations with other LVMH brands?
So, I think that the approach is specific to each maison. So the Bulgari approach is really done together with the folks at Marriott, and is aiming to be in the top cities where there is that luxury clientele. So they've got a beautiful property in Paris and Milan, and they've got plans to open in a number of other cities, around the world. Cheval Blanc is really the creme de la creme of hospitality. We only have 5 properties right now around the world. We're in the process of trying to develop our 6th one in Beverly Hills. And those we don't know exactly how many we'll have at the end of the day, but I don't think it's going to be a very large number of Cheval Blancs. They really are to be in the kind of iconic locations around the world that fit the savoir faire of that maison. On the other hand, Belmond is all about the journey. Belmond has about 50 assets, which include 30-something hotels, but we also have a number of trains and river boats for sort of river cruising. And so, the expansion there is again into also iconic places, but not really a downtown like Los Angeles or Miami. More likely to see Belmond's expansion in places like South America, perhaps Australasia, where there are incredible places where Belmond can enhance not only the experience there, but also the journey to get there. As far as collaborations with other LVMH brands, we have a very strict rule. Collaborations are entirely only happen when they're win-wins.
Right.
So no brand is ever forced to work with another brand. And we find that you get the best collaborations when both brands are approaching it with openness and creativity, but are also being fiercely protective of their brand. And when you have both brands being super protective of their own DNA and their own authenticity, that's when you get something cool that comes out.
2022 was full of milestones for an industry working on sustainability. More luxury brands have set climate targets than ever. Alternative materials are on the rise, and resale has really gone mainstream. LVMH has been recognized for high ranks in the sustainability area. What are a few items on your top line sustainability agenda for 2023?
Well, LVMH was an early pioneer in the field of environmental policy. We've had one for over 30 years, and for us, it's actually not just a sort of CSR obligation. It's actually it's an existential issue for some of our businesses. What I mean by that is, we make products that grow, right? We make champagne and wine from grapes. We make perfumes from real flowers that grow in fields that we own or control. And if the climate changes too much, you won't get the same quality out of those same fields. And we can't grow champagne anywhere else but in Champagne. So this is really these issues are existential for us in some ways. And so we have our strategy we call Life 360, and they are around protecting biodiversity, fighting climate change, of course, focused on CO2, which is everything from the product manufacturing all the way through to the transportation, procurement, and then in our stores, and moving all those to green energy. Thinking through how we can make better use of our unsold products, or we call dead stocks, raw materials that we don't use up in our manufacturing to promote a circular economy, and then frankly transparency. Right, it goes back to the conversation we had about Aura. We believe that we do the right things. We spend a lot of time, money, and energy to do the right things, and we want to make sure our clients can see what we're doing.
So, Anish, my final question, which I ask all my guests, is the luxury item question. So if you were stranded on a deserted island and you can only have one luxury item with you, what would that one single luxury item be? It can't be any form of air or water transportation to get you off that island, or anything that requires mobile service. You can call somebody to get you off that island. So you're just stranded on this island with palm trees, sand, and miles of ocean. What would that one luxury item you would want to have with you?
I think it'd have to be a pair of Louis Vuitton sunglasses, because it's going to be sunny. And if I got to pair it, I would bring some SPF product from Fresh.
Anish Melwani, Chairman and CEO of LVMH for North America. Thank you so much for joining me on The Luxury Item.
Thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.